The history of Islam is marked by countless battles fought with faith, courage, and sacrifice. From the very first Battle of Badr to the modern-day resistance in Palestine, these struggles shaped the Muslim world and preserved the legacy of the Ummah. This is the story of those battles, a story of resilience, honor, and unwavering belief. Battle of Badr, 2 AH 624 CE. In the scorching heat of the Arabian desert, on the 17th of Ramadan in the second year after Hijrah, the first and most decisive battle in Islamic history took place. The Battle of Badr, what began as an interception of a Qurayshi trade caravan, turned into a divine confrontation between truth and falsehood. The Prophet Muhammad, having received news that Abu Sufyan's caravan was heavily guarded, prepared a small group of 313 Muslims with only 2 horses and about 70 camels. Among them were veterans like Abu Bakr, Umar, Hamza, Ali, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, and Bilal radiyallahu anhum. On the opposing side, the Quraysh of Makkah assembled a formidable army of 1,000 men, 100 horses, and 600 camels, led by Abu Jahl, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, Shaybah, and others. Their goal was to crush Islam in its infancy. The battlefield lay near the wells of Badr, southwest of Medina. The Muslims took strategic control of the water source upon the advice of Hubab ibn al-Mundhir. The night before battle, rain softened the land behind the Muslims and hardened the ground beneath them, a divine mercy mentioned in Surah Al-Anfal 8:11. Before the battle began, the Prophet raised his hands and made the most passionate dua ever recorded. "O Allah, if this group is destroyed today, you will not be worshipped on earth again." His cloak fell from his shoulders as he cried, and Jibril alayhi salam descended with an army of 1,000 angels, as promised in Surah Al-Anfal 8-9. The battle began with individual duels. Ali, Hamza, and Ubaidah ibn al-Harith radiyallahu anhum faced Utbah, Shaybah, and Walid, the Quraysh veterans. The Muslims prevailed. Then came the full-scale clash. Despite being outnumbered 3-1, the Muslims fought with unwavering faith. 70 Quraysh were killed, including Abu Jahl, and 70 were captured. Among the captives was Abbas, the Prophet's uncle. The Muslims lost 14 men. Victory at Badr was not just military, it was spiritual. It proved that Allah supports the believers when they stand firm. This battle shifted the balance of power in Arabia and gave the Muslims political recognition. As mentioned in Surah Al-Imran 3:123-125, Allah had already given you victory at Badr when you were few in number. Battle of Uhud, 3 AH 625 C. A year after their humiliating defeat at Badr, the Quraysh of Makkah returned thirsting for revenge. Led by Abu Sufyan, they raised an army of 3,000 men, 200 cavalry, and 3,000 camels, including their women and poets to stir morale. Among them were Hind bint Utbah, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, Khalid ibn al-Walid, who had not yet embraced Islam, and Amr ibn al-As. The Muslims, numbering only 700, initially set out with 1,000 men, but 300 hypocrites under Abdullah ibn Ubay withdrew, weakening morale. Despite the odds, the Prophet consulted his companions and chose to confront the Quraysh at the foothills of Mount Uhud, just outside Medina. The Prophet placed 50 archers on a strategic hill pass behind the Muslim army, commanding them strictly, "Do not leave your positions, even if you see birds eating our flesh." The battle began in the Muslims' favor. Under the leadership of Hamza and Ali radiyallahu anhuma, the Quraysh ranks began to collapse. However, thinking victory was secured, the majority of the archers disobeyed the Prophet and left their posts to collect the spoils. Seizing the moment, Khalid ibn al-Walid, a tactical genius even then, led the cavalry through the unguarded pass, attacking the Muslims from the rear. Panic spread. Hamza radiyallahu anhu was martyred by Washi, a skilled Abyssinian spear thrower, at the behest of Hind. The Prophet himself was injured, his helmet driven into his blessed face, his tooth broken, and he fell into a ditch. At one point, rumors spread that he had been killed. But soon, the Muslims regrouped on Mount Uhud, and the Quraysh withdrew, mistakenly believing their job was done. 70 Muslims were martyred, including Mus'ab ibn Umair, the flag-bearer, who was mistaken for the Prophet because of his resemblance. Surah Ali Imran 3:140-179 discusses this battle in depth, reminding the Muslims that setbacks are a test and not a sign of abandonment. If a wound has touched you, be sure a similar wound has touched the others. The Battle of Uhud was not a defeat, but a lesson in obedience, patience, and steadfastness, even in adversity. The Quraysh had not won the war, they had only delayed their downfall. Battle of the Trench, Khandaq, Ahzab, 5 AAH 627 CE. The Quraysh, now desperate, conspired with the Jewish tribe of Banu Nadir, the Ghatafan, and other desert tribes to end Islam once and for all. A coalition of 10,000 soldiers marched toward Medina, intending to wipe it off the map. The Muslims had only 3,000 defenders. In this crisis, the Persian companion Salman al-Farsi suggested a novel idea unfamiliar to the Arabs: digging a trench. On the northern side of Medina, the only open entry point, the Muslims dug day and night under severe cold and hunger. The Quraysh were shocked. The trench halted their advance. They laid siege to Medina for nearly a month, facing wind, cold, and fear. The hypocrites inside the city whispered doubt. The Jewish tribe of Banu Qurayza, who had a peace treaty with the Prophet, betrayed the Muslims and plotted to attack from within. Allah describes the psychological warfare of this moment in Surah Al-Ahzab 33:10-12. Behold, they came upon you from above you and from below you. The believers were shaken with a mighty shaking. But Allah sent a powerful storm, chilling winds and angels to break the enemy's morale. The Quraysh retreated, humiliated, and never again launched a full attack on Medina. Soon after, the Prophet marched to the fortresses of Banu Qurayza for their betrayal. After a 25-day siege, they surrendered. Their fate was judged by Sa'd ibn Mu'ad, who ruled according to Torah law. The men were executed, the women and children taken captive, a harsh but just punishment for treason during war. The Battle of the Trench was a turning point. The Quraysh lost their final hope. Allah said in Surah Al-Ahzab 33:25, "And Allah repelled those who disbelieved in their rage. They gained no good." Treaty of Hudaybiyyah 6H 628 CE. Though not a battle, this was one of the greatest strategic victories in Islam. The Prophet and 1,400 Muslims set out in Ihram to perform Umrah. The Quraysh blocked them at Hudaybiyyah and negotiations began. A peace treaty was signed. 10 years of truce. Muslims would return this year and come next year for Umrah. And any Qurayshi who fled to Medina would be returned. Though painful at the time, the treaty opened the door for dawah. Within 2 years, more people embraced Islam than in the previous 18 years. Even Khalid ibn al-Walid and Amr ibn al-As accepted Islam. Allah revealed in Surah Al-Fath 48:1, "Indeed, we have granted you a clear victory." Battle of Khaybar 7 AH 629 CE. The stronghold of Khaybar, north of Medina, was home to powerful Jewish tribes who had conspired with Quraysh. Their forts were heavily defended. The Prophet led 1,400 Muslims against them. The Muslims laid siege to each fort. The battle climaxed when the Prophet gave the banner to Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiyallahu anhu, saying, "Tomorrow I will give the banner to a man who loves Allah and His Messenger, and Allah and His Messenger love him." Ali, though, suffering from an eye infection, healed by the Prophet's touch, led the charge. Fort after fort fell. The Jews surrendered, and terms were agreed. They could live and farm in exchange for giving half their produce to the Muslims. This victory secured northern Arabia, silenced future Jewish rebellion, and displayed Islamic justice in warfare. Conquest of Makkah, 8 AH, 630 CE. After years of persecution, migration, battles, and broken treaties, the hour of return had come. The Quraysh had violated the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah by supporting the Banu Bakr tribe in an attack against the Muslim-allied Banu Khuza'ah. The Prophet immediately mobilized a massive army of 10,000 soldiers, marching silently toward Makkah in Ramadan, 8 AH. The Muslims entered from multiple gates, their aim not revenge, but justice and mercy. Abu Sufyan, the Quraysh leader, was given safe passage after accepting Islam. The Prophet declared, "Whoever enters Abu Sufyan's house is safe. Whoever stays in their home is safe. Whoever enters the haram is safe." When the Prophet entered Makkah, he did so with his head bowed low in humility. He performed tawaf, broke the idols around the Kaaba, 360 of them, and recited, "Truth has come and falsehood has perished." Surah Al-Isra, 1781. The entire city surrendered. No mass revenge, no bloodshed. The Prophet stood before the Quraysh, the same people who had tortured him, killed his companions, and forced him into exile, and asked, "What do you think I will do with you?" They replied, "You are a noble brother and the son of a noble brother." He said, "Go, you are free." This moment wasn't just political conquest, it was moral and spiritual victory. The city that once drove out the messenger now bowed in submission to him. Islam entered hearts, not through the sword, but through forgiveness and character. Battle of Hunayn, 8 AH, 630 CE. Shortly after the conquest of Makkah, the Prophet faced another challenge. Two powerful tribes, Hawazin and Thaqif, fearing Muslim dominance, prepared for war. The Muslims, now 12,000 strong, felt confident, perhaps overly so. As they advanced into the narrow valley of Hunayn, the enemy launched a sudden ambush from both sides. The Muslims panicked and fled, except a handful who stayed firm. The Prophet called out, "I am the Prophet, no lie, I am the son of Abdul Muttalib." Slowly, the Muslims rallied. Allah sent tranquility. The tide turned. The enemy was defeated, and captured booty included 24,000 camels, 40,000 goats, and 6,000 captives. Allah reminded the believers in Surah At-Tawbah, 9:25. Indeed, Allah gave you victory on many battlefields, and on the day of Hunayn, when your great numbers impressed you. This battle humbled the Muslims, reminding them that victory comes only from Allah, not numbers or weapons. Battle of Tabuk, 1-9 AH, 631 CE. In one of the hottest months of the Arabian year, the Prophet called the Muslims to march north toward Tabuk to confront the looming threat of the Byzantine Empire. The journey was long, resources were scarce, and the test of sincerity was immense. Some made great sacrifices, like Uthman ibn Affan, who donated 300 camels and 1,000 gold coins. Others, like the poor companions, came weeping because they had no means to join. In contrast, the hypocrites made excuses to stay behind. Allah revealed verses in Surah At-Tawbah exposing them. When the Prophet and 30,000 Muslims reached Tabuk, the Byzantines did not show up. No battle occurred, but it was a moral victory. The tribes in the region submitted to Muslim rule, and the Muslims proved their resolve. Key lesson: sometimes the test is not in fighting, but in being willing to fight, even in hardship. Wars. Of apostasy, Ridda wars. After the Prophet's death, 111 AH, 632 CE. After the Prophet passed away, many Arab tribes reneged on Islam. Some refused to pay zakat, others followed false prophets like Musaylima al-Kadhdab, Tulayha, and Saja. The new caliph, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, stood firm. He said, "By Allah, if they withhold even a rope they used to give in zakat during the time of the Prophet, I will fight them for it." Despite pressure from companions like Umar to delay, Abu Bakr dispatched armies led by Khalid ibn al-Walid, who crushed apostate rebellions in Najd, Yamama, and beyond. The most intense battle was the Battle of Yamama, where over 1,000 Muslims, including many Quran memorizers, were martyred. It was here that Musaylima, the false prophet, was killed by Washi, the same man who had killed Hamza radiyallahu anhu and later repented. These wars preserved the unity and identity of Islam at a critical time when it could have shattered. Battle of Yarmouk, 15 AH, 636 CE. Islam now faced one of the two world superpowers, the Byzantine Empire. Under Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, the Muslims moved into Syria. The Byzantines responded with over 200,000 troops, led by Theodore Tritherius. The Muslim army, only 40,000, was led by the fearless Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah. The battlefield was near the Yarmouk River, a rocky, uneven terrain ideal for ambushes. Over 6 days, the Muslims used brilliant flanking tactics. One of Khalid's maneuvers involved attacking from behind using a hidden cavalry unit. Even Muslim women like Hind bint Utbah, now a believer, fought when the lines were breached. The Byzantines were routed. The defeat was so humiliating, it ended Byzantine hopes of reclaiming Syria. The city of Damascus fell. Syria became a permanent part of the Muslim world. Lesson: Allah can give victory to the few against the many when they stand with sincerity. Battle of Qadisiyah, 16 AH, 637 CE. Now the Muslims turned east toward the Persian Empire, a mighty superpower with centuries of dominance. Caliph Umar appointed Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu to lead the Muslims, around 30,000, against a Persian force of 120,000, led by the legendary Rustam. The battle lasted 4 days, near the town of Qadisiyah in modern-day Iraq. Elephants were used by the Persians to terrify horses and break lines, but the Muslims cleverly blinded the elephants and broke their formation. On the 4th day, amidst a sandstorm, the Muslims launched a final offensive. Rustam was killed. The Persian army scattered. The victory opened the doors to Ctesiphon, al-Madain, the Persian capital. Consequences: the fall of Persia began. Islam would reach the heart of an empire once thought invincible. Battle of Nahawand, 21 H, 642 CE. The victory of victories, Fath al-Futu. After Qadisiyah and the fall of Ctesiphon, the Persians attempted one last stand to preserve their empire. They gathered 150,000 soldiers at Nahawand, southwest of modern-day Iran. Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab ordered Nu'man ibn Muqarrin to lead an army of about 30,000 Muslims. The Persians chose a fortress-like valley to trap the Muslims. Nu'man, sensing danger, feigned a retreat to lure the Persians out. As they emerged from their stronghold, the Muslims struck with full force. Nu'man was martyred in the battle, but his brother took the banner and led the Muslims to a decisive victory. The Sassanid Empire, one of the world's oldest empires, collapsed permanently. With this battle, Islam spread across Iraq, Persia, and Central Asia. Legacy: the Battle of Nahawand is remembered as the final death blow to the Persian Empire. Persia became a center of Islamic scholarship for centuries to come. Battle of the Chi Camel, 36 AH, 656 CE. First Fitna, a political civil war. This battle was not fought against disbelievers, but among Muslims. After the assassination of Caliph Uthman ibn Affan, the new Caliph Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu faced demands for justice. Among those demanding swift action were Aisha, the Prophet's wife, Talha, and Zubair. Both parties had sincere intentions, but due to misunderstandings, manipulation by rebels, and political chaos, they clashed at Basra. The battle began unintentionally and ended with thousands of casualties. Talha and Zubair were martyred, and Aisha was respectfully escorted back to Medina by Ali himself. This event was heartbreaking, companions of the Prophet fighting each other, but it was a trial and test that the Ummah was destined to endure. Battle of Siffin, 37 AH, 657 CE, Ali versus Muawiyah, a clash of leadership. The next major battle of the first Fitna was between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the governor of Syria, who also demanded justice for Uthman's killers. The battle took place near the Euphrates River and lasted several days. When Muawiyah's army began losing, they tied pages of the Quran on their spears, requesting arbitration. Ali, despite the protest of many, agreed, avoiding more bloodshed. This decision led to further division. A group of Ali's former supporters, the Khawarij, accused him of abandoning divine judgment and eventually assassinated him in 40 AH. Consequence: the Muslim Ummah became politically divided, setting the stage for the Umayyad Caliphate under Muawiyah. Battle of Constantinople, multiple attempts, 669–718 CE. The Prophet had foretold, "You will conquer Constantinople. Blessed is the commander, and blessed is the army that will do it." Musnad Ahmad. The first Muslim attempt came under Muawiyah radiyallahu an, around 669 CE, but failed due to harsh winters and strong Byzantine defense. Even Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, the beloved host of the Prophet Shaks, died during this campaign and was buried near the city walls. Further attempts by later Umayyads also failed. The city was surrounded by triple walls, sea barriers, and the deadly Greek fire. The prophecy would remain unfulfilled for over 800 years until it was finally achieved by Sultan Mehmed II, al-Fatih, in 1453 CE. Battle of Manzikert, 1071 CE. The doorway to Anatolia, the Seljuk Turks under Alp Arslan faced off against the Byzantine Empire led by Emperor Romanos IV. The Seljuks, though outnumbered, used feigned retreats and cavalry attacks to encircle the Byzantines near Manzikert, modern Turkey. The result was a disastrous defeat for the Byzantines. Emperor Romanos was captured alive. Anatolia, once Christian, became the homeland of the Turks and eventually the Ottoman Empire. Impact: this battle triggered the First Crusade as Christian Europe began to panic over Muslim advances. The Crusades begin. Siege of Jerusalem, 1099 CE. Christian armies invade the Muslim world. In 1095 CE, Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade, calling Christians to liberate Jerusalem. By 1099 CE, after brutal marches through Anatolia and Syria, the Crusaders reached Jerusalem, then controlled by the Fatimid Muslims. The Crusaders massacred tens of thousands, Muslims, Jews, even Eastern Christians. The blood was said to be ankle-deep in the streets. They turned Masjid al-Aqsa into a church, and the Ummah was shaken. This began nearly a century of occupation, until Allah raised a hero. Battle of Hattin, 1187 CE. Salahuddin Ayyubi's greatest victory. The man who would fulfill the hope of millions was Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, a Kurdish general known for his piety, mercy, and genius. By 1187, he had unified Egypt and Syria and marched toward Palestine. At Hattin, near the Sea of Galilee, he lured the Crusader army into the dry plains during peak summer. Dehydrated, exhausted, and surrounded, the Crusaders were crushed. King Guy of Jerusalem was captured, and Reynaud of Châtillon, a notorious killer of Muslims, was executed by Salahuddin himself. Recapture of Jerusalem, 1187 CE. The fall of the Crusader kingdom. After Hattin, city after city fell to Salahuddin. By October 1187, he surrounded Jerusalem. The Crusaders surrendered. Unlike the massacre of 1099, Salahuddin granted peace, no bloodshed. Christian citizens were allowed to leave. Women, elderly, and children were treated with dignity. He restored Masjid al-Aqsa to its original glory and cleaned the filth from its sacred halls. Third Crusade, 1189-1192 CE. Richard the Lionheart versus Salahuddin Ayyubi. After the shocking Muslim victory at Hattin and the fall of Jerusalem, Europe launched the Third Crusade, led by Richard I of England, Lionheart, Philip II of France, and Frederick Barbarossa of Germany. Frederick drowned en route, and the remaining two led massive armies to the Levant. Richard was a formidable warrior and strategist. He retook Acre and defeated Salahuddin's forces at the Battle of Arsuf. Yet, despite victories, he failed to recapture Jerusalem. Salahuddin's strategy of defense and attrition worked. He preserved the Holy City. Eventually, a truce was signed in 1192 CE. Muslims would retain control of Jerusalem, while Christian pilgrims would be allowed to visit peacefully. Legacy. Salahuddin was admired even by his enemies for his chivalry, mercy, and honor. When Richard fell ill, Salahuddin sent him his personal doctor and fruits from Damascus. Mongol invasion and the fall of Baghdad, 1258 CE. The darkest day in Islamic history. The mighty Mongol Empire, under Hulagu Khan, launched a terrifying invasion of the Muslim world. Their goal: total destruction. In 1258 CE, they besieged Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, once the crown jewel of Islamic civilization. The Mongols surrounded the city and slaughtered its people. Historians say up to 1 million Muslims were killed. Libraries, universities, and mosques, some housing ancient knowledge from Greece, India, and Persia, were burned or thrown into the Tigris River, turning its waters black with ink and red with blood. The Abbasid Caliph, Al-Mustasim, was wrapped in a rug and trampled to death by horses, a cruel mockery of royal blood. Impact. The caliphate fell. The heart of the Muslim world was destroyed. The Ummah wept, but Allah would soon raise defenders. Battle of Ain Jalut, 1260 CE. When the Mongols were stopped for the first time. After Baghdad's fall, the Mongols turned toward Egypt and the Levant. But this time, the Muslim world had a shield. The Mamluks of Egypt, slave soldiers who rose to power and formed a disciplined military state. At Ain Jalut, in modern-day Palestine, the Mamluk commander Sultan Saifuddin Qutuz, with his brave general Baybars, led around 20,000 soldiers against a much larger Mongol force. Using clever ambush tactics in narrow terrain and the advantage of local knowledge, the Muslims crushed the Mongols. The commander Kitbuka, a Christian Mongol, was captured and executed. Significance. This was the first major defeat of the Mongol army in history. It proved they were not invincible. It saved Makkah, Medina, and Cairo from destruction. Islam endured. The rise of the Ottoman Empire, 1299-1500 CE. From a small beylik to a global empire, from the ashes of the Mongol devastation and a fragmented Muslim world, a small Turkish tribe under Osman, I began building power in Anatolia. These warriors, inspired by Islam and skilled in cavalry warfare, grew in strength over generations. By the 14th century, the Ottomans had become a powerful force, absorbing neighboring beyliks and defeating the weakening Byzantines. Conquest of Constantinople, 1453 CE. The prophecy fulfilled. The dream of conquering Constantinople, foretold by the Prophet Muhammad, was finally realized in 1453 CE by Sultan Mehmed II, known as Mehmed al-Fatih, the Conqueror. At just 21 years old, Mehmed led an army of over 80,000, supported by massive cannons, engineers, and naval ships. The city was defended by thick triple walls and a powerful Christian fleet. Using a genius tactic, Mehmed hauled ships across land to bypass sea chains and launched continuous bombardment. After 53 days, the city walls were breached. On May 29, 1453, Constantinople fell. The Byzantine Empire, the last remnant of Rome, ended. The city was renamed Istanbul, and Hagia Sophia, Hagia Sophia, was converted into a masjid. Legacy. The Ummah rejoiced. The prophecy had come true. Verily, Constantinople shall be conquered. What a wonderful leader will her leader be, and what a wonderful army will that army be. Ahmad Hakim. Battle of Chaldiran, 1514 CE. Ottomans versus Safavids, Sunni versus Shia. In this crucial battle, the Ottoman Sultan Selim faced the Safavid Shah Ismail I of Persia. The Safavids were spreading Shia Islam by force, while the Ottomans defended Sunni orthodoxy. Selim used gunpowder weapons and cannons, while the Safavids still relied on traditional cavalry. The result was a crushing Ottoman victory. Outcome: Eastern Anatolia and parts of Iraq became Sunni, shaping the sectarian divide of the Muslim world for centuries. Battle of Mohacs, 1526 CE. Ottoman expansion into Europe. Under Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottomans pushed into Hungary, defeating the Christian European alliance at the Battle of Mohacs. The Hungarian king died in battle, and much of Eastern Europe became a vassal or province of the Caliphate. Suleiman, known for his justice and intellect, expanded Islamic rule to 3 continents and defended Muslims from the Spanish Inquisition, Portuguese colonialism, and European Crusades. Ottoman-Portuguese naval battles, 1500s, 1600s, CE, protecting the Indian Ocean from European invasion. After Vasco da Gama's arrival in India, 1498, Portuguese fleets began attacking Muslim ports across East Africa, Arabia, and India. They desecrated mosques, enslaved Muslims, and disrupted the centuries-old Islamic trade routes. The Ottoman Empire, under admirals like Piri Reis and Saidi Ali Reis, sent fleets from Egypt to defend Makkah, Medina, and Muslim pilgrims. Major battles were fought. Battle of Diu, 1538 CE. Ottomans tried to crush Portuguese dominance in India, but failed due to betrayal by some local Indian Muslim rulers. Battle of Hormuz, 1552-1553 CE. Ottoman navy attempted to take the Strait of Hormuz, a key choke point, from the Portuguese. Though not always victorious, the Ottomans preserved the sanctity of the Hijaz, stopped Portuguese plans to attack the Kaaba, and checked European ambitions, colonial invasions, and Muslim resistance, 1700s, 1900s CE. As the Ottoman Caliphate declined, Western powers invaded Muslim lands in waves, yet brave Muslims rose in every region. Emir Abdelkader of Algeria, 1830-1847 CE, against the French Empire. When France invaded Algeria in 1830, Emir Abdelkader, a scholar warrior, unified tribes and resisted with guerrilla warfare. He built an Islamic state, emphasized Sharia law, and led jihad for 17 years. Though ultimately exiled, his noble treatment of prisoners and civilians earned global respect. Even Christians admired his Islamic ethics in war. Imam Mahdi of Sudan, 1881-1898 CE, Mahdist revolution against the British. Muhammad Ahmad declared himself the Mahdi, a reformer to restore Islam. He led a massive uprising against British-Egyptian rule, defeating General Gordon at Khartoum and establishing an Islamic state. His movement was deeply religious, emphasizing revival of Sunnah, Sharia, and Jihad. Tipu Sultan of Mysore, India, 1782-1799 CE. The Lion of Mysore, son of Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan fought bravely against the British East India Company. He modernized his army with rockets and artillery, sought alliances with the Ottoman Caliph and Napoleon, and ruled by Islamic principles. He died fighting on the battlefield, refusing surrender. His words, "Better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a jackal," Diponegoro of Indonesia, 1825-1830 CE, jihad against Dutch colonizers. In Java, Prince Diponegoro led a massive war against Dutch occupation. A devout Muslim, he declared jihad to protect Islam and local culture from European Christianization. Fall of the Ottoman Caliphate, 1924 CE. A turning point in Muslim history. After World War I, European powers carved up the Muslim world. Britain and France took Palestine, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and more. In 1924, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk abolished the Ottoman Caliphate, ending over 1,300 years of Islamic leadership. The Ummah was divided into nations with borders, and secularism was enforced in many places. But the spirit of Islam didn't die. Palestinian resistance, 1948, present. The long struggle for Al-Aqsa. In 1948, the Zionist State of Israel was established on Palestinian land, backed by the West. Over 700,000 Palestinians were expelled in the Nakba, catastrophe. Yet, from that day, Muslims have never stopped resisting. Key events. 48. Arab-Israeli War. Muslim countries intervened but lacked unity and strength. 967. Six-Day War. Al-Quds, Jerusalem, was taken by Israel. First Intifada, 1987. Children threw stones at tanks, a grassroots uprising. Second Intifada, 2000. Massive resistance movement. Gaza Wars, 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021, 2023, 2025. Israel bombed civilian areas, killing thousands, especially children. Yet, Gaza stood firm. Resistance groups. Hamas, Islamic movement defending Gaza. Al-Qassam brigades, military wing engaging in armed struggle. Lone wolves, ordinary Palestinians resisting occupation with nothing but knives or stones. Modern Muslim resurgence. Today, Islamic resistance continues not just in Palestine, but in Kashmir, India. Oppression, mass detentions, revocation of rights. Xinjiang, China. Uyghur Muslims face camps and forced assimilation. Syria, years of war and displacement. Afghanistan. After 20 years of occupation, foreign forces left in 2021. Libya, Yemen, Iraq, victims of war, invasions, and foreign control. Despite this, the Ummah is waking up. Scholars, youth, and even average Muslims are reviving interest in Islamic history, Sharia, brotherhood, and unity. Conclusion. From the sands of Badr to the siege of Gaza, the story of Islamic battles is a story of faith, sacrifice, honor, and revival. The Muslim Ummah faced empires: Roman, Persian, Crusaders, Mongols, Portuguese, British, Zionists, yet still stands. So do not weaken and do not grieve, and you will be superior if you are true believers. Quran, Surah Ali Imran 3:11-39.